Welcome to Ways to Money. This is part one, how much do you really make? So before we start off with our objectives, I just want to read to you a little blurb from a passage. So here it is. About 70% of the time you are awake during your lifetime is spent at work. That's a long time. Knowing that this much of your waking time is spent at a job makes it extremely important to learn and understand as much as possible about the jobs you hold, the salaries you make, the benefits your job offers, and the taxes you pay. So in this chapter, or this unit, you will study employment basics so that you can become an educated employee. And you won't have to wait years to use the information you will learn here. You will be able to apply this knowledge while you are searching, applying, accepting, and working at a job, whether it is in a part-time or full-time capacity. Many people start working in their early to mid-20s and continue working until they are in their 60s or 70s. And some people are never able to retire or quit working, and many of you may have already started working and you're in your teens. So it's a very important concept to know about employment and the different aspects of employment. So let's go back to our objectives. So our objectives to start off here in part one are very simple. We just want to become familiar with some different earning structures for different jobs or careers. We want to become familiar with key terms, and we want to be able to calculate gross pay under different earning structures. And finally, I want you to understand and become familiar with the difference between gross pay versus net pay. All right, so let's start off with hourly wage here. A lot of you already make an hourly wage, and that's just a rate per hour. So let's go ahead and try a problem using hourly wage. So a typical hourly wage would be like a barista at Starbucks, or maybe you work at Walmart, or you work as a cashier at Target or Safeway or a bagger. You hourly wage. So you want to set up an expression. Assuming that you get paid $9.15 per hour and you worked 30 hours last week. And I think a lot of you can do this in your head, but I want you to get used to working with expressions. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's set up an expression. So we would take, for our gross, this is calculating our gross, mind you, we're not trying to find the net, we're trying to find our gross pay, what we've actually earned. So our gross pay is going to be equal to the hours that we work times the rate that we make per hour. So in this case, I am saying that H is equal to the number of hours worked, number of hours, and R is equal to the rate or dollar amount per hour. Okay, it helps to set up and define your variables, and then you can put it into an equation. So that way we can use this equation for anybody making any rate per hour. We don't have specific numbers. So what we can do is we can just put in that our gross pay, well, the hours that we worked 30 hours, and our rate was $9.15. Okay, and then we can just put that in the calculator. We can say 30 times $9.15. And we get a total that we made of $274.50, and that was last week. Okay, and I want you guys to think about this, and probably you're already aware that you don't necessarily get a paycheck for this amount, and we'll be talking about that soon. So let's look at some other examples, things that you may not be as familiar with. In some jobs you can earn commissions, and some of you even may earn commissions if you work for somebody like a Circuit City or some of those places where you sell electronics. And I'm not sure if the Apple Store does it or other places, but I know that electronic stores often will pay a commission for everything you sell. Certainly car salesmen earn commissions. So what we want to do is understand what commissions are. And commissions are a percent that you earn based on your sales. So we always think of commissions as a percent typically. Okay, so we want to set up an expression and calculate. You sold a car for $18,500, right? And you earn a 4% commission on all sales. So again, we can set up an equation. We know that G is going to represent our gross income. And I'll just go ahead and write gross. And then to figure out our commissions, we would say that we would take our sales figure, so we'll call that S, and we would multiply that by our commission percent, and we'll call that C. So again, defining my variables, S is equal to the dollar amount of sales that we make, because our commissions are based on our sales, and C is going to equal the percent commission that we might earn. Okay, and so I've gone ahead and used my variables. Now I can just plug in, and again, it doesn't matter. Maybe your sales changed next week. So if you were creating an equation, say in Excel or something else, this general expression would work no matter what you sold and no matter what percent you had. So we can just plug in 18,500 for our sales, and we can plug in 4% for our commissions, but remember, we don't ever multiply it with a 4% like it's written. We have to change it to either a decimal or a fraction. And 4% is 4 over 100, which is 0.04. So if we were to put that again in our calculator, 18,500, and let's move it down a little bit, times 0.04, we would see that we would have earned $740 on that car sale. Pretty good, pretty good. Okay, so that's a second way of a different structure of earning money. Let's look at another one. All right, so overtime. And overtime is really a component of hourly wage. So this is for hourly employees. Typically, overtime is paid at 1.5 times the straight rate, it's called. And the straight rate is just your hourly rate. So we want to set up an expression and calculate. You worked 48 hours last week at GameStop in the mall. Well, we know from before that our gross salary is equal to the hours that we worked, right, times the dollar amount per hour, our rate. Well, it's not going to be so simple here because 40 hours fit into this, but the other 8 do not. So we need a different type of equation to account for that overtime. So what we would do is we would say, okay, in this case, if we have overtime, our gross salary is going to be equal to the 40 hours that we work times whatever our rate is, plus we're going to take the difference between 40 hours and what we worked. So we're going to take the hours that we worked minus 40 hours, and then we're going to multiply that by 1.5 times our straight rate. Well, that would then be 1.5 times our rate. Okay, it looks fairly complex. In fact, it probably seems more complex than just doing it in your head. However, it's not too bad. So if you think about it, we are taking 40 hours at $8 an hour, and we are taking 8 hours at 1.5 times $8 an hour. Okay, so we are going to assume, it doesn't say in here, but let's just say, for simplicity's sake, since it doesn't say, that we earn, since it's left off, $8 per hour. That's our straight rate, and that's why I said 8. Okay, so let's go ahead and plug in what we know and make sure that it works. So we say that our gross rate then is going to be equal to $8 times 40. So 40 times 8, we get paid $8 an hour. Plus, now the hours worked, we worked 48 hours minus the 40 that we got paid at $8 an hour, times 1.5 times our rate, which is $8 an hour. Okay, simplifying this a little bit, we just need to be careful that we follow our order of operations. We need to do our multiplication in our parentheses first. So this is $320 is what we get for 40 hours. Plus, we are going to earn, for 8 of our hours, we are going to earn $12 an hour. 1.5 times 8 is 12. $12 an hour. So the total that we're going to bring in will be 320 plus 96 to give us $416, and that includes overtime. So overtime adds a little bit extra calculation, but again, it's not too bad, and some of you already earn overtime at time and a half. All right, let's just do a couple more. So let's look at the difference between net pay and gross pay, since what we've been looking at so far has all been gross pay. So our gross pay is the total amount that you earn, but you rarely receive it. And as you've seen in some of your paychecks, you earn this great amount, but then all these things come out. So the amount that you actually receive in your paycheck is called net pay, and that's after all the deductions have been taken out. So then that leads us to the question, well, what exactly is coming out? So here's an example of a pay stub, and we can look up here. Here's this person's gross pay. This month, they earned $2,576.92. However, if we look at what they actually paid, they only got, we'll underline that here, they only got $1,808.15. That's their net pay. So the deductions that came out, we have a federal income tax, we have a Social Security tax, we have a Medicare tax, a state tax, a local tax, and then we have some health insurance, and we have 401k, which is part of a retirement plan. Those are all typical deductions that may come out of your paycheck. Now, some of these are just elective by you, but taxes are mandatory. You have to pay taxes. And you may be exempt from federal and state and local taxes, but you are never exempt from Social Security and Medicare taxes. Everybody has to pay that. Insurance, again, is now required with Obamacare, but you may not necessarily pay it through your paycheck. You may have to go out and get it on your own. But again, something that could potentially come out of your paycheck. And then dollars saved to retirement accounts. That's what this 401k is. You know, as soon as you have a regular job, you need to consider, what am I going to do when I retire? So you may have money taken out to put into a retirement account. Some people have disability, union dues, and there's something called a flex spending account, which you may have a choice to set up, especially if you are on an annual salary versus an hourly salary. All right. And that concludes our intro to ways to make money. So go ahead and start the packet on the next page, and then I'll see you back here for part 2.